Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're taking on a really detailed and I should say sensitive examination of a case that many people know, but maybe not the full depth. It's the disappearance of Susan Marie Powell.
It's truly one of the most tragic and complex missing persons cases, really, of this century. It starts in Utah, West Valley City, December 2009, but as you know, it just spirals out.
It really does. Spans multiple states, involves deep family issues, legal fights, and ends just devastatingly with a double murder-suicide years down the line.
Yeah, and it's a tough set of sources to work through. It's not just police reports.
Yeah.
It's decades of family dysfunction, abuse. We're looking at legal filings, psych evaluations, court testimony. It gives a very full, but frankly, harrowing picture.
So our goal here for you listening is to really synthesize all this material. We want to get past the headlines, understand the environment Susan was trapped in, the specific events that led to her husband, Joshua Powell, becoming the prime suspect.
And ultimately, how the whole investigation unfolded and led to the horrific deaths of their two little boys, Charles and Braden. They were only 4 and 2 when their mom disappeared.
Just so young. Susan herself was only 28 when she vanished. She was a working mom. Started as a cosmetologist, then moved to Wells Fargo Investments.
By all accounts, really dedicated to her boys. And the sources make it clear she was, well, desperately trying to find a way out of a situation at home that was getting more and more dangerous.
Which is why, to really understand this, we can't just start in 2009. We have to go back further, right? To look at the foundation of turmoil, really, that Joshua grew up in.
Absolutely, that context is critical. Because Joshua's actions, they weren't random. They seem deeply rooted in his past, particularly revolving around his father, Susan Powell.
Okay, so let's unpack that history. Joshua was born in '76, grew up in Puyallup, Washington. What do the sources tell us about that household?
Well, deeply dysfunctional is the term his own mother, Terica, used during the divorce proceedings from Stephen back in 1992. It points to just immense instability.
And those divorce filings, they get pretty specific, don't they? More than just typical marital problems.
Sure, definitely. The documents allege Stephen wasn't just abusive, but had a serious disregard for, well, any kind of parental boundary or social norm. They claim he actually shared pornography with his sons. Yeah, creating an environment where, moral structure just wasn't there. And Stephen, he was also deeply disaffected with the LDS Church, refused to enforce limits, and just added to the chaos.
So you can see how that environment might shape a child. Do we see specific behavioral issues with Joshua himself back then?
We do. And it really signals a pattern. Emotional disturbance, aggression, things that later defined his adult relationships. There are accounts from his teen years, allegations he killed his sister's gerbils.
Which is a known disturbing sign, isn't it? Early cruelty.
Exactly. And reports he threatened his own mother with a butcher knife. The sources also document at least one suicide attempt. So this wasn't just teenage angst. It was serious, volatile behavior.
And this need for extreme control, that seems to be a key theme. We see it even before Susan, right? In another relationship from the late 90s.
That's right, yeah. Critical context. While he was at University of Washington, Tacoma, he dated Catherine Terry Everett. And she ended it precisely because he was so possessive, so controlling.
How so?
He started putting, severe restrictions and limitations on her contact with her own family. It got so bad, so suffocating, she actually had to break up with him over the phone while she was away on a trip. Basically had to get away from him physically just to end it.
So that's the man Susan Cox meets around 2000. Already a history of volatility, control. They marry pretty quickly, April 2001, and then almost right away, they make a fateful decision.
They moved in briefly with Susan Powell.
Which, given what we know now about Stephen,
It proved catastrophic. Stephen developed this immediate, overwhelming, and really pathological obsession with Susan. And we're not just talking about a father-in-law being, overly friendly. The sources detail actions that are textbook voyeurism.
what kind of specific actions are we talking about?
It was systematic,
Yeah.
invasive. He followed her around the house constantly, often with a camcorder, supposedly filming family life, but clearly focusing on her.
Disturbing.
And it gets worse. Truly unsettling physical violations. Using a small mirror to spy on her in the bathroom, stealing her underwear from the laundry, reading her private journals, treating her deepest thoughts like they were his.
He even took it online, didn't he? Posting about her.
Yes, posted love songs, other declarations, all under a fake name, but clearly aimed at Susan. This whole campaign of violation led up to 2003 when, incredibly, Stephen confessed his feelings directly to her.
How does Susan react?
She immediately shut him down. Rejected him completely, made it clear she wasn't interested. And here's the twist. The whole awkward, disturbing exchange. It was accidentally recorded by the microphone on Stephen's own camcorder.
Wow. So there's proof.
Documented proof of his transgression and her rejection. And that was the final straw. It forced them to move out of state to West Valley City, Utah, trying to get some physical distance.
But moving didn't solve the core marriage problems, did it? It just removed Stephen from the immediate picture, at least for a while. Susan's journals from 2004 onward, they start documenting extreme turmoil.
Yeah, the marriage was clearly cracking under multiple pressures. Joshua's financial irresponsibility was a big one. He filed for bankruptcy in 2007, over $200,000 in debt.
That's huge pressure.
And his continued attempts to isolate and control Susan. Plus, crucially, even after everything with Stephen, Joshua kept in contact with him. Susan hated it, feared it, and Joshua also refused to go to church with her and the kids, creating this deep rift.
Which leads us to the really chilling documentation Susan started creating. Almost like she knew she needed proof. It's heartbreaking looking back.
It says so much about her fear, her foresight. She started documenting everything. In July 2008, she actually recorded a video, not of herself, but of damage around the house she said Joshua caused in anger.
Physical evidence of his temper.
Exactly. But the most powerful document, her secret will.
What did she put in that will? How clear was she about her fears?
Extremely explicit. She wanted two things documented if she died unexpectedly. First, I want it documented that there's extreme turmoil in our marriage.
Okay.
And second, the part that just sends chills down your spine. If I die, it may not be an accident, even if it looks like one.
She's basically pointing the finger years before she vanished.
Pretty much naming him as a potential killer. And all this background, it's just crucial. It shifts the narrative from, a sudden mystery to something that feels almost inevitable, given the history of threat and control.
It really does contextualize what happened in December 2009. Okay, let's shift now to the disappearance itself and the immediate aftermath. Sunday, December 6th, 2009.
Right. That's the last confirmed sighting.
Yeah.
Susan and the boys went to church. Later that day, a neighbor visited, left their house around 5 p.m. That neighbor was the last person outside the family known to have seen Susan alive.
And the alarm wasn't raised until the next day, Monday the 7th. Who reported them missing?
It was actually Joshua's mother, Terica, and his estranged sister, Jennifer Graves. The boys didn't show up at daycare, which was really unusual. They couldn't reach anyone at the house.
So they called the police.
Yes, they feared maybe carbon monoxide poisoning, something like that. Police broke in.
And the scene inside immediately shifted the focus from, say, an accident to something potentially criminal, right? What did the police notice first?
Well, first, Susan's things were there. Her purse, wallet, ID, all inside the house. That suggests she hadn't planned to leave or travel.
Okay.
But the biggest, most immediate red flag, 2 large box fans set up in the living room, blowing directly on a visible wet spot on the couch.
That screams cleanup attempt, doesn't it? Drying out evidence.
Textbook sign, exactly.
Yeah.
Suggests concealment, tampering with a scene. Plus, her cell phone wasn't with her belongings. It was later found in the family minivan, which Joshua had taken. All signs pointed to something happening in the house and Susan not leaving on her own.
Then Joshua shows up around 5 p.m. that Monday with the boys, seemingly unaware of the police presence and concern. And his explanation for where they'd been, it was unbelievable from the start.
Baffling is the word. He claimed he left Susan sleeping just after midnight early Monday morning, and then decided, spur of the moment, to take his 4-year-old and 2-year-old sons camping.
Camping?
Camping out on the Pony Express Trail in western Utah, a desolate, remote area.
Let's just pause there. The Pony Express Trail, that's not some family campground. It's remote. And this was December. In Utah.
We're talking near blizzard conditions, potentially, sub-freezing temperatures, taking toddlers camping after midnight in that, especially when they had daycare scheduled just hours later. It just defied all logic.
Destroyed his credibility right off the bat.
Absolutely. And then he claimed he missed work because he thought it was Sunday, not Monday, which, contradicted his detailed story about leaving after midnight Sunday. The timeline didn't work.
Did the police check out the supposed campsite? Find anything?
No. They searched the area along the Pony Express Trail just a few days later, December 10th. Found absolutely zero evidence that anyone had camped there recently. No fire pit, no tracks, nothing. His story just didn't hold up physically.
And then, after his initial questioning on December 8th, his actions get even stranger. This is where the rental car comes in.
Right. This is a really compelling piece of circumstantial evidence. After talking to the police, Joshua goes straight to the Salt Lake City airport and rents a car. keeps it for about 18 hours.
Okay. And the mileage?
When police checked the records, he put an additional 807 miles on that rental car's odometer.
807 miles in less than a day. That's a lot of driving.
It's an enormous distance for supposedly random driving.
Yeah.
It suggests two things to investigators. One, he was using a different car, maybe to avoid transferring evidence, a body, cleanup supplies, whatever, to his own minivan.
Makes sense.
And two, 807 miles gives you a huge radius. Could cover vast parts of the Utah desert, maybe reaching into Wyoming, Nevada, Idaho. He claimed he was just driving around randomly, but that mileage suggests sustained high-speed travel, likely in remote areas, very strongly suggesting disposal of evidence or, tragically, Susan's body far from home.
So by December 9th, police have enough for a search warrant for the house. What key physical evidence did they find inside?
They found confirmation of potential violence. Traces of blood on the floor. DNA tests later confirmed it was Susan's. Interestingly, also blood from an unknown male contributor.
Anyone ever identified?
Not publicly, no. But beyond the blood, they found motive and, well, premonition.
Motive being the insurance money.
Exactly. Life insurance policies on Susan totaling $1.5 million. And crucially, they found that handwritten letter from Susan herself, expressing her fear for her life, warning her death might not be an accident.
Blood, money, and her own words. That's a powerful combination pointing right at Joshua.
Devastating. Meanwhile, the only immediate witnesses, the children, were giving accounts that were, fragmented, confusing because of their age, but also heartbreakingly revealing.
What did the boys say?
Charles, the older son, was asked about the camping trip. He confirmed it happened, but his version directly contradicted his father's. Charles said Susan had gone with them on the trip.
Went with them?
Yes, and did not return.
That completely blows up Joshua's alibi about her sleeping at home.
Totally. It suggests, from Charles's memory, his mom was alive when they left, but something happened while they were gone. And weeks later, Charles told a teacher, much more bluntly, that his mother was dead.
Oh, heartbreaking. And the younger son, Braden.
Even Braden offered something chilling, though very fragmented. Susan's parents said he drew a picture of a van with 3 people in it and told caregivers Mommy was in the trunk.
Just awful to imagine what they might have seen or heard, all while Joshua himself wasn't exactly acting like a worried husband, was he?
Not at all. His behavior was actively obstructive. By December 14th, he'd lawyered up, stopped cooperating completely, and his administrative actions. Highly suspicious.
Like what?
Documents show he immediately liquidated Susan's retirement accounts, canceled her chiropractic appointments, pulled the kids out of daycare. These aren't the actions of someone hoping their spouse comes home. They're the actions of someone cutting ties, moving on.
And then there was that detail investigators learned from his coworkers about hiding a body.
Yeah, shocking. Investigators found out Joshua had actually talked with coworkers before, hypothetically, about how someone could hide a body in one of the abandoned mine shafts out in the western Utah desert.
The same area he claimed to have gone camping.
Exactly. It showed not just a preoccupation with murder and concealment, but it gave police a specific type of location to search in that vast area.
Which also raised the question of an accomplice. Did he do this alone? That brought his brother, Michael Powell, into focus, didn't it?
Michael became a key figure, yeah. Very shortly after Susan disappeared, Michael sold his old, broken-down Ford Taurus to a wrecking yard up in Oregon.
Auspicious timing.
Very. Police tracked the car down. They brought in a cadaver dog, and the dog alerted to the scent of decomposing human remains in the trunk.
Wow. Definitively Susan.
Well, DNA tests on the trunk liner were ultimately inconclusive. But the dog hit. That's significant. Plus, Michael later ordered satellite photos of the wrecking yard lot, suggesting he was worried about the car, wanted to make sure it was gone. Utah police later stated they believed Michael helped Joshua hide Susan's body.
So with the investigation in Utah hitting a wall nobody found, the whole center of this storm shifts north to Washington State.
Right. Joshua lost his job in Utah, so he moved himself and the boys back to Puyallup, Washington. Moved back in with Stephen, Michael, and his other siblings, John and Alina. The Powell family basically circled the wagons.
And they launched that website, susanpowell.org, which wasn't really about finding Susan, was it?
Not really, no. It was this aggressive online defense campaign. Officially anonymous, but everyone suspected Joshua and Stephen were behind it. They used it to paint Joshua as the victim, float these wild theories.
Like what, mental illness? Running off?
Yeah, claiming Susan abandoned the family because of mental illness, or that she ran off to Brazil with another missing guy, Stephen Kuchar. Just trying to deflect blame entirely.
But that whole defensive structure kind of crumbled when Stephen Powell's own obsessions finally led to his arrest, didn't it?
It really did. Stephen's past caught up with him. In 2010, police seized computers from his house, and what they found was staggering. 4,500 images of Susan,
4,500.
taken without her knowledge. Intimate close-ups of body parts, just concrete proof of his pathological fixation going back years. It proved the move to Utah hadn't stopped him.
Unbelievable, so that led to his arrest.
Yes, September 2011. Arrested on charges of voyeurism and child pornography, not just related to Susan, but also secretly taping young neighbor girls. And upon arrest, Stephen actually claimed he and Susan had been falling in love. Just delusional.
That arrest must have been the opening Susan's parents, Chuck and Judy Cox, needed.
Absolutely. It gave them the legal leverage to fight for their grandson's safety. Chuck Cox filed for custody immediately.
And the court agreed.
Yes. A Washington court saw the danger in Stephen's home and granted the Coxes temporary custody of Charles and Braden. The judge ordered Joshua to move out of Stephen's house if he wanted any visitation.
Did he comply?
Well, he rented a house in a place called South Hill, but authorities later suspected it was just for show, that he was still spending a lot of time back at Stephen's.
And during this custody fight, Joshua underwent psychological evaluations, right? What did those show?
Dr. James Manley evaluated him in late 2011. Manley didn't say he was unfit initially, but he expressed great concern. Noted Joshua's extreme defensiveness, paranoia, strong narcissistic traits, things that could easily become dangerous if he felt his control slipping.
Which it clearly was. And then there was that controversial computer evidence that came up in the custody case.
Right. This became a huge point. West Valley City Police had seized a computer, found about 400 images, simulated child pornography, bestiality, incest, really disturbing stuff.
And they linked it to Joshua.
Well, when Manley asked Joshua about it, Joshua denied knowing anything about the images. Manley found that discrepancy alarming and recommended a full psychosexual evaluation before any final custody decision. That weighed heavily on the court.
But years later, we found out the truth about those images, didn't we?
We did. And it really highlights the potential pitfalls of digital evidence. Reporting in 2019 by the Cold Podcast, actually, revealed those images were not Joshua's. They were cached files left by the previous owner of the computer, which Susan had bought secondhand.
So a key piece of evidence used against him in the custody battle was fundamentally wrong.
Exactly. A critical distinction. Now, obviously, Joshua's history of control, his connection to Stephen, those were still huge red flags. But the fact remains, this specific, damaging piece of evidence was based on a misattribution.
Still, by early 2012, Joshua was losing everything, wasn't he? His wife was gone, presumed dead, his job was gone, his father was in jail, and now he was losing custody of his sons.
The walls were absolutely closing in, and the loss of his children, that seems to have been the final trigger for what came next. Tragically, Sunday, February 5th, 2012.
That's the day the social worker, Elizabeth Griffin Hall, arrived for a supervised visit.
She got to Joshua's rented house in South Hill. He let her in, then immediately grabbed the boys, Charles and Braden, and locked her out.
She must have known instantly.
She did. Called 911 immediately. But just moments after her call, the house exploded, engulfed in flames. Joshua, Charles, and Braden inside.
A double murder-suicide. Just horrific. And the investigation showed it wasn't spontaneous, right? It was planned.
Chillingly premeditated. Fire investigators found he'd spread gasoline throughout the house, found 2 5-gallon gas cans, and his actions leading up to it. Meticulous planning.
What kind of actions?
Minutes before the explosion, he sent emails. Some just said, "I'm sorry, goodbye." Others gave detailed instructions to family and his bishop about his money, how to shut off utilities.
Cold and calculated.
Completely. The day before, he'd withdrawn $7,000 cash. And maybe the most heartbreaking detail, he donated all the children's books and toys to charity, erasing their existence before taking their lives.
The official cause of death was carbon monoxide, but the autopsies revealed something even more brutal happened to the boys before the fire.
Yes, this detail just underscores the pure violence of his final act. The coroner found Charles and Braden had suffered significant chopping injuries to their heads and necks.
Chopping injuries?
They found a hatchet near Joshua's body. Police believe he attacked his sons with the hatchet first, fatally wounding them before the fire and fumes took over. He made sure they were dead before he died.
Utterly devastating. After that, what happened to the other key figures? Michael Powell, the suspected accomplice.
About a year later, February 2013, Michael Powell died by suicide. Jumped from a parking garage roof in Minneapolis. With both brothers dead, West Valley City Police officially closed the active investigation into Susan's disappearance in May 2013.
And their conclusion was clear.
Crystal clear. Their statement was that Joshua murdered Susan, and Michael helped him hide her body.
But the legal battles weren't over for the Cox family. They had to fight for Susan's estate, and they took on the state of Washington, didn't they?
They did. First, they had to fight Joshua's mother, Terica, and sister, Alina, who actually tried to have Susan declared dead just to collect the insurance money. Chuck Cox eventually won control of Susan's estate in 2015.
Unbelievable. And the lawsuit against Washington's DSHS, the Social Services Agency.
That was a huge fight. They argued the agency was negligent. That DSHS prioritized Joshua's parental rights over the overwhelming evidence that the boys were unsafe with him, especially after Stephen's arrest. They argued the social workers had ample warning.
Did the social workers face consequences?
The individual workers were eventually granted immunity, but the lawsuit against the agency itself went forward. It took years, went through appeals, but finally, in 2020, a jury agreed with the Coxes. They found DSHS negligent and awarded the boys' estates $98 million.
A massive sum, acknowledging a systemic failure.
A legal acknowledgement that the system failed to protect those children despite all the red flags and the sources we've discussed.
And yet, after all this time, Susan Powell is still officially a missing person. Efforts to find her continue.
She's never been located. Her family has tried to get her legally declared dead as a homicide victim. Searches do happen periodically, focusing on those remote Utah desert areas, the mine shafts. Early 2022, a civilian cave crew found some bones and clothing scraps in a mine near where Joshua claimed he camped.
Any connection?
Turned out the bones were animal remains, but they did find male DNA on the clothing scraps. They're still trying to identify who that belongs to, so the physical search does continue, even though the criminal case is closed.
And Susan Powell, the genesis of so much of this.
He was released from prison in 2017 after serving time for the voyeurism charges. He died of natural causes in 2018. So all the main perpetrators are gone now. But Susan is still missing.
So we've covered a tremendous amount of detail in this deep dive. The documented abuse, the control, the financial motives, the children's words, the failed alibis, the horrific final act. The sources really leave no doubt that Joshua murdered Susan and likely, with Michael's help, hid her body, ultimately destroying his entire family.
And when you step back and look at all that evidence, the evidence that existed before she disappeared, her will, the video, the documented fear, Stephen's known behavior, and you consider the immense cost of the investigation afterwards, over $500,000 just from West Valley City by 2011, it really forces a tough question.
Which is,
what's the real cost, not just financial, but the human cost of information silos, of failing to connect the dots when severe domestic turmoil is documented? What lessons from this case, from this incredibly detailed history of fear and control, must society apply going forward when similar situations arise? That's the heavy question this case leaves us with.
That is an incredibly powerful point to reflect on. Thank you for navigating us through all this incredibly difficult material.
Of course. It's important to understand the full context.
And thank you, our listeners, for joining us on this deep dive. We hope laying out the information from the sources helps shape your understanding of the many complex factors that led to this unforgettable tragedy.